The evening air carried a strange mixture of excitement and expectation as the charity event began. Guests in elegant attire mingled politely, exchanging smiles and small talk that rarely reached the heart. Among them was a young woman, the daughter of a billionaire, walking with a composed grace that had been drilled into her from an early age. Her world was one of luxury, of grand estates and expensive vacations. Yet tonight, she felt a peculiar emptiness, a restlessness she could not name. Surrounded by glimmering chandeliers and polished floors, she could not shake the feeling that something was missing. She had attended countless social events, galas, and fundraisers, yet each seemed to blend into the next, leaving her craving something real. Yes, something that spoke to her soul. The venue was a large community center, chosen by the organizers for its connection to the local community. The contrast between the glitz outside and the simplicity of the center was stark. The hall was warm, filled with the faint scent of fresh flowers and the hum of conversation. At one corner of the room stood an upright piano, aged and well-used, its wooden frame polished to a dull shine from years of hands brushing against it. It was not a centerpiece anyone paid much attention to at first glance, but there was something quietly powerful about it, something that drew the young woman in without her even realizing. Across the room, Mon adjusted the sheet music on the piano, his movements careful but unassuming. He was a single father, a man who had spent countless late nights working long hours, balancing jobs to provide for his child. His hands bore the marks of labor and life, yet when he lifted them to the keys, they moved with surprising grace. His fingers seemed to dance with a quiet confidence, each note chosen with care, each pause intentional. This was not a performance meant to dazzle or impress, it was a performance of honesty, a reflection of a life filled with struggle and small triumphs. The young woman, wandering near the piano out of idle curiosity, paused as the first notes floated into the air. She stopped, as if the music had wrapped itself around her, tugging gently at something deep inside. The sound was not polished like the grand concert halls she had frequented, nor was it technically perfect. It was raw, emotional, and filled with a kind of beauty she had never encountered. Each note carried a story, a fragment of a life lived with perseverance and love. She found herself leaning closer, drawn not by expectation, but by an unspoken connection she could not name. The father's eyes were focused, not on the audience, but on the piano and the emotions flowing through him. His child, a small boy, sat nearby, swinging his legs and occasionally glancing at the keys with wide-eyed wonder. The music seemed to reach beyond the room, beyond the polite chatter and clinking glasses, into a space where honesty and vulnerability existed without judgment. The young woman watched, captivated. As the father's expression shifted subtly with each passage, joy, sorrow, hope, and quiet determination all mirrored in his face. As the melody continued, the young woman felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of recognition, as if she had stumbled upon a truth she had long forgotten. It was not just music. It was a story unfolding in real time, a life laid bare through sound. Her privileged world, with all its perfection and control, felt distant and hollow in comparison. Here was a man whose daily existence demanded resilience and courage, and yet he created something that could touch hearts in a way wealth never could. The room, previously filled with polite conversation, seemed to grow quiet around the piano. Some guests glanced curiously, but most were distracted by their own social circles. The young woman, however, remained rooted in place. She could not tear her eyes away from the father's hands, from the way his fingers coaxed emotion from the keys with a delicate strength. There was a sincerity here that was absent from the sparkling social gatherings she had always attended. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly present, immersed in a moment that belonged entirely to her and the music. The father paused, briefly allowing a lingering note to fade into silence. He looked up at his child, who beamed with pride and clapped softly, breaking the spell for a brief moment. The young woman found herself smiling, a genuine smile that felt foreign in the polished, performative world she usually inhabited. She realized she wanted to speak to this man, to understand the story behind the music, to grasp even a fraction of the life that had produced such heartfelt expression. When the music resumed, it took on a more playful tone, a gentle improvisation. That reflected the father's relationship with his child. The young woman noticed the way the child's laughter mingled with the melody, creating a harmony that was unplanned yet perfect. There was a lightness, a joy in simplicity that she had rarely experienced. The music was no longer just sound. It was life itself, with its imperfections, its surprises, and its quiet beauty. As the final notes drifted into silence, the young woman remained standing, not wanting to break the delicate spell. Around her, guests resumed their conversations. But she felt as though she had stepped into another world, one where authenticity and emotion mattered more than appearances or status. She felt an urgent curiosity to know more about the man who had created such profound music from seemingly ordinary circumstances, summoning a courage she had not felt in years. She approached the piano. The father looked up, slightly surprised, not expecting attention from someone from the world she represented. His initial expression was cautious but welcoming. There was no pretension here, no attempt to impress. He was simply a man who had lived, struggled, and found a way to communicate through his art. "That was beautiful," she said softly, her voice carrying a sincerity that immediately put him at ease. "I've never heard anything like that before." He nodded, a modest smile forming. "Thank you. Something I play for my child mostly, but I'm glad it could be shared." The young woman glanced at the small boy, who was now drawing quietly on a piece of paper, and then back at the father. "It's more than music," she said. "It feels like life, all the struggles and joy somehow. It's all in there." For a moment, the father studied her, seeing in her eyes a reflection of genuine curiosity rather than idle politeness. "I guess music has a way of carrying everything we feel," he replied. "Sometimes it's easier to show the world through sound than through words." They stood in silence for a few moments, the young woman absorbing the truth of his words. In that brief encounter, she sensed something she had never found in her sheltered life: honesty, humility, and a deep emotional resonance that could not be bought or taught. She realized that the world she inhabited was filled with people striving to impress, while here was someone creating something of value simply because it came from the heart. The father returned to the piano, now playing a softer, slower piece. She listened, captivated once more, and noticed small details she had missed before: the way his fingers hovered with care, the subtle changes in tempo, the gentle dynamics that spoke of patience and thoughtfulness. The music felt alive, each note a testament to resilience, to love, and to the quiet power of human expression. Time seemed to stretch, the room fading around her as she immersed herself in the moment. She felt a strange mix of emotion, and a gentle sadness for the life experiences that had shaped this man so differently from her own. Yet she also felt hope, a sense that life could be richer and more meaningful if one paid attention to the beauty found in unexpected places. When the piece ended, she clapped softly, drawing the attention of a few nearby guests who glanced at her curiously. She did not care about their judgment. Her focus remained on the father and his child, on the connection that had quietly formed through music and shared humanity. It was a connection that transcended social class, wealth, and background, rooted instead in authenticity and emotional truth. The father smiled, acknowledging her applause with a quiet nod. "I'm glad you enjoyed it," he said. "It's not often that someone really listens, you know? Most people just hear, but they don't listen." She nodded, understanding completely. "I listened," she said simply, "and I want to hear more. I want to understand how you do this, how you create something so real." He chuckled softly, a sound that carried both humility and pride. "It comes from living, I suppose. Life teaches you whether you like it or not. Music just helps me make sense of it." As they spoke, she realized that she had stumbled upon something rare: a person whose life was not defined by privilege, yet whose experiences had given him a richness of spirit she had never encountered. The evening continued around them, but for the young woman, the world had shifted. She had discovered a spark, a source of inspiration that promised to challenge her understanding of life, art, and human connection. The father, unaware of the profound impact he had already made, continued to play softly as she watched. In that moment, surrounded by a world of opulence she had long taken for granted, She felt a stirring of something new. It was the beginning of a journey, a first step into a world where music, life, and human resilience intersected in ways she could never have anticipated. The encounter was brief, yet it carried the weight of possibility, a reminder that the most meaningful experiences often arrive when least expected, from people whose stories are waiting to be heard. She left the piano reluctantly that evening, her mind alive with melodies, emotions, and questions. The music lingered in her thoughts, a gentle echo that would not fade. She knew she had discovered more than a simple performance. She had discovered a doorway into understanding life differently, through the lens of someone who lived with courage, hope, and a quiet dedication to the things that truly mattered. The encounter marked the first chapter of a story that would transform her perspective, inspire her actions, and ultimately lead her to a deeper appreciation of the human spirit. Far beyond the walls of her own privileged ward the next morning, the young woman found herself thinking about the piano performance constantly. The memory of the father's hands moving across the keys, the melody carrying emotions she had never known, and the gentle laughter of his child filled her mind. It was unusual for her to be so affected by something outside her structured world of schedules, events, and expectations. She realized that the music had touched something deep within her, something she could not ignore. Determined to learn more, she returned to the community center a few days later. She wanted to see the father again, to understand the man behind the music and the story that had been revealed so briefly. The center was quiet in the morning, sunlight spilling through the windows and reflecting off the polished floors. She noticed the familiar upright piano in the corner, its keys catching the light as if inviting her to listen once more. The father was there, teaching a small group of children basic piano notes. His patience was evident, and his teaching style was gentle yet firm. The children were attentive, inspired by his encouragement and warmth. When he noticed her standing near the doorway, he paused and offered a polite smile, a gesture that welcomed her without expectation. She stepped forward, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I couldn't stop thinking about your music," she admitted. "It was more than just notes, it felt like life itself. I want to understand how you do it, how you make music that moves people so deeply." He looked at her thoughtfully, wiping his hands on a cloth. "It's not easy to explain," he said. "Music comes from experiences, from feelings that words sometimes cannot capture. It's about paying attention to life, to joy, to sadness, to everything that happens every day." They talked for a long time, sitting on the wooden benches near the piano. He shared his story, carefully selecting words that conveyed not just facts, but emotions. He spoke of the challenges of raising his child alone, the sacrifices he had made, the long hours of work, and the dreams he held quietly for his child and the community around them. He spoke of music as a companion, a way to process the world and share hope. She listened intently, feeling a sense of connection she had rarely experienced. She realized that, despite their vastly different lives, they shared a fundamental understanding of human emotion. She had grown up surrounded by wealth and comfort, but that life had often felt hollow, lacking the depth she saw in the father's simple yet rich existence. She began to understand that inspiration did not come from luxury or status, but from perseverance, honesty, and the courage to live fully. The father, in turn, was intrigued by her curiosity. It was rare for someone from her world to approach him with genuine interest rather than judgment or pity. He found himself opening up in ways he rarely had, sharing not only his music, but also the dreams he kept for himself and his child. The conversation flowed naturally, without the need for pretense or performance. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly seen. As the days passed, the young woman began visiting the community center regularly. She observed the father teaching children, helping them learn not only music, but also patience, discipline, and self-expression. She noticed the small ways he encouraged them, celebrating their successes and gently guiding them through mistakes. She found herself inspired by his dedication, his ability to nurture creativity despite the challenges of his life. She decided to participate in the activities, not as an observer, but as a learner and helper. She assisted with organizing classes, helping children with simple exercises, and even trying her hand at the piano herself. The father offered guidance when she asked, never patronizing, always supportive. Through these interactions, she began to see life from a different perspective, appreciating the value of hard work, empathy, and connection. One afternoon, while they were practicing together, she asked him about his approach to creating music. How do you decide what to play, what to share with others? She inquired. He smiled, pressing his fingers lightly on the keys. I play what I feel in the moment, he explained. Sometimes it's joy, sometimes sadness, sometimes hope. I listen to life, and I try to translate it into sound. Music is a language that speaks to the heart, and the heart can understand it better than the mind sometimes. She was fascinated by his perspective. In her world, everything was planned, measured, and controlled. Here there was spontaneity, intuition, and emotional truth. She realized that true expression did not require perfection, only honesty. This realization began to change the way she viewed her own life, her choices, and the way she interacted with the people around her. Over time, their conversations deepened beyond music. They discussed books, art, dreams, and the struggles of everyday life. The young woman shared her feelings of emptiness and longing for meaning, while the father shared his experiences of resilience, sacrifice, and small victories. Their friendship grew naturally, built on mutual respect, curiosity, and the joy of learning from one another. The community began to notice the changes in her as well. She was no longer the distant, polished observer who only smiled politely at events. She was engaged, compassionate, and genuinely interested in the lives of the people around her. The children adored her, drawn to her warmth and willingness to listen. The father observed these changes quietly, recognizing that the young woman was discovering her own voice. Inspired by the lessons he had shared, one evening, as they packed up the piano and prepared to leave, the father spoke about a local concert he had been organizing. I want to showcase the children's talents and give them a chance to perform in front of an audience, he said. It's a way to celebrate their hard work and to show that music can bring people together. The young woman's eyes lit up. I want to help, she said eagerly. I can use my resources to support the event, organize it properly, and make sure it reaches more people. He looked at her, a mix of surprise and gratitude in his expression. Are you sure? That's a lot of responsibility. She nodded confidently. I want to do it. I've never felt more connected to something meaningful. I want to help others experience the same inspiration I felt when I first heard your music. And so their collaboration began. The young woman brought organizational skills, connections, and resources, while the father contributed his musical expertise, guidance, and the trust of the children and community. Together, they worked to plan the concert, ensuring that every detail honored the children's efforts and the spirit of the music. Their partnership was not without challenges, but each obstacle was met with patience, communication, and shared determination. As the concert approached, the young woman found herself reflecting on the journey so far. She had come seeking inspiration, and what she found was far richer than she had anticipated. She had discovered the power of genuine human connection, the beauty of creativity born from perseverance, and the importance of supporting others in meaningful ways. The father had not only shared his music, but also opened a window into a life that was authentic, challenging, and deeply fulfilling. The father, too, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Working with the young woman had reminded him of the possibilities beyond his daily struggles. He saw the impact that dedication and belief could have, not only on his own life, but on the lives of the children he taught and the community he cherished. The collaboration with her had brought new energy, ideas, and hope, reinforcing his belief that music could change lives in ways he had only dreamed of. Through their shared efforts, they began to see the broader impact of their work. Children who had been timid or unsure of their abilities found confidence through practice and performance. Parents expressed gratitude, noticing how their children's engagement with music brought joy and discipline into their homes. The community center became a hub of creativity, encouragement, and connection, a place where people of all backgrounds could come together and celebrate talent, effort, and human spirit in quiet moments. The young woman and the father would sit by the piano reflecting on the progress they had made. They shared stories, laughter, and sometimes silent contemplation, appreciating the journey as much as the destination. Their friendship had deepened into mutual respect and admiration, each learning from the other in ways that transcended social boundaries and life experiences. The young woman often marveled at the simplicity and depth of his teaching. He did not need grand gestures or formal training to make an impact. He relied on patience, empathy, and a deep understanding of human emotion. She realized that these qualities were rare and invaluable, shaping lives in ways that money and status never could. One afternoon, as they were practicing a piece together, she asked him why he continued to dedicate so much time to teaching despite his own challenges. He paused, considering her question, then spoke with quiet conviction, "Because it matters. Every small effort, every note played, every lesson shared all has meaning. If I can give a child confidence or help them express themselves, then it's worth it. Music is not just for me. It's for everyone who needs it." His words resonated deeply with her. She understood that true fulfillment came not from personal gain, but from making a difference, however small, in the lives of others. This realization sparked a change within her, shaping her perspective on her own life, privilege, and the responsibilities she carried. She began to see that influence and power could be used for good, to nurture, inspire, and create opportunities for others. As part 2 of her journey drew to a close, the young woman felt a growing sense of purpose. She had discovered a world beyond wealth and status, a world filled with creativity, resilience, and human connection. The father had become more than an inspiration. He had become a mentor, a guide, and a friend. Their shared efforts were beginning to leave a mark on the community, and she realized that this was only the beginning. There was so much more to learn, to experience, and to share. And as the days that followed were filled with new experiences for the young woman, she arrived at the community center early in the mornings, eager to learn more about the children and the music programs the father had established. Each visit revealed something new, something inspiring that she had never seen in her world of privilege. The children were vibrant and full of curiosity, their laughter echoing through the halls as they practiced scales and simple melodies. She joined in, offering encouragement and sometimes clumsily trying to follow the father's instructions on the piano. Though her skill was limited, her enthusiasm and sincerity won the admiration of the children and the father alike. The father watched her closely, noting her dedication. He saw a willingness to learn, a genuine desire to understand more than just the notes. He guided her patiently, correcting her mistakes gently, emphasizing the importance of listening and feeling the music rather than focusing solely on technical perfection. The young woman appreciated his approach, realizing that it reflected a larger life lesson. Understanding and empathy were far more valuable than superficial skill. As the two of them spent more time together, their conversations deepened. They spoke of life, struggles, and dreams. The father shared stories of his childhood, moments of hardship that had shaped his resilience and determination. He spoke of his love for his child and the joy and challenge of raising a family alone. The young woman listened, absorbing every word, and gradually found herself opening up about her own life. She spoke of the emptiness she sometimes felt despite her wealth, the pressure to conform to expectations, and the longing for a sense of purpose beyond her social circles. He listened with quiet attentiveness, never judging, never offering advice unless she asked. His presence was calming, and she began to feel a sense of trust she had rarely experienced. The gap between their worlds was vast, yet in those moments, it seemed to disappear. Music had bridged the divide, and human connection had followed naturally. One afternoon, as the sun streamed through the windows, the father suggested they try composing a piece together. The young woman was hesitant at first. She had never written music in her life, but he encouraged her to express whatever she felt, assuring her that the process was more important than the result. She hesitated for a moment, then let her fingers hover over the keys, unsure of what to play. Slowly, tentative notes emerged, clumsy but filled with sincerity. He listened, nodding encouragingly, then added his own melodies, weaving their ideas together into something new. The music flowed between them, a dialogue without words, a reflection of their shared journey. Through this collaboration, she began to understand the depth of the father's gift. His music was not just about skill. It was about translating life into sound, about capturing emotions that could not be expressed otherwise. She realized that every hardship he had faced, every moment of joy and sorrow, was present in the notes he played. The realization left her humbled and inspired. Their work on the concert progressed steadily. The young woman used her organizational skills to plan the event, reaching out to local businesses for support, arranging the space, and coordinating schedules. She took pride in her efforts, knowing that her resources could amplify the father's impact and give the children an opportunity to shine. The father, focused on the music, trusted her judgment, and appreciated her dedication. Together, they formed a partnership that combined vision, skill, and heart. In the evenings, after the children had left, they often stayed behind to practice and discuss the concert. The young woman learned about the importance of pacing, emotional dynamics, and the subtle ways music could tell a story. She began to understand that every note mattered, every pause carried meaning, and that music was as much about feeling as it was about technique. The father's guidance was patient and insightful. She absorbed his teachings with a mix of curiosity and admiration. As the concert date approached, the young woman noticed changes in herself. She was more confident, more engaged, and more aware of the world around her. She began to see value in small gestures of kindness, and effort and persistence, and in the connections forged through shared experiences. Her perspective on her own life shifted. She recognized that privilege came with responsibility, and that she had the ability to make a meaningful difference if she chose to. The father, too, experienced growth through their collaboration. He realized that his music had the power to inspire beyond his immediate circle, that his life experiences could teach lessons, not only through words, but through melody. The young woman's presence and dedication reminded him that there were people willing to listen, to support, and to amplify the message of hope and resilience embedded in his music. Their mutual respect and admiration grew, rooted in the shared goal of creating something meaningful for the children and the community one day. As they reviewed the list of performers for the concert, the father noticed the nervousness of a young boy who was scheduled to play a solo. He suggested they spend some extra time practicing together. The young woman volunteered to assist, helping the boy focus and gain confidence. She offered encouragement, shared her own experiences of fear and hesitation, and celebrated his small victories. By the end of the session, the boy was smiling, his nervousness replaced by excitement. The father watched, pleased, and commented on the importance of nurturing confidence as much as skill. Their efforts began to draw attention from the wider community. Parents expressed gratitude for the support their children were receiving. Local businesses offered donations, and volunteers came forward to help. The young woman realized that the concert had become more than an event. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when people from different worlds collaborated for a common purpose. The father's music, the children's talent, and her organizational skills combined to create something that touched lives and inspired hope. During one practice session, the young woman asked the father how he maintained his patience and dedication despite the challenges he faced. He paused, thinking carefully. "It's not always easy," he admitted. "But I focus on the moments that matter. Every child who learns something new, every note that brings joy, every smile that's worth it. Life is full of struggles, but if we pay attention to the small victories, the beauty, the effort, it makes everything meaningful." She absorbed his words, reflecting on her own life. She realized that she had often overlooked the small moments, the everyday opportunities to make a difference. Inspired by his philosophy, she began to act with intention, seeking ways to contribute, to support, and to connect. The community center became a space where she not only assisted, but also learned about empathy, resilience, and the power of genuine human interaction. As the concert approached, rehearsals intensified. The children grew more confident, the music more polished, and the excitement in the community began to build. The young woman worked tirelessly to coordinate details, ensuring that everything from seating to lighting was carefully planned. The father focused on the performance, guiding the children and refining the music. Despite the stress and challenges, there was a sense of joy and anticipation in the air, a shared understanding that they were creating something meaningful together in quieter moments. They would sit by the piano, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They spoke of the changes they had observed in themselves and in the children, of the lessons learned and of the impact they hoped to have. The young woman often marveled at the simplicity and depth of his teachings, realizing that life's most important lessons were often conveyed not through wealth or power, but through patience, care, and authenticity. The father, too, appreciated the growth he had witnessed in the young woman. He saw her transformation from a passive observer of life into an active participant, someone willing to learn, contribute, and engage with the world around her. Her dedication and sincerity reminded him that inspiration could travel both ways, that learning and teaching were part of a shared journey rather than a one-sided effort. One evening, as they finished a long day of practice and preparation, the young woman expressed her gratitude. "I never expected to find something so meaningful," she said softly. "I thought I understood life, but being here, learning from you and the children, I feel like I've discovered a world I didn't know existed." The father smiled, a gentle, proud expression. "You've brought a lot of energy and support," he replied. "It's not just about the concert or the music, it's about the connections we make, the encouragement we offer, and the example we set. That is what lasts." Her heart swelled with understanding. She realized that the journey was far from over. The concert was only one milestone, one opportunity to share the lessons and inspiration they had cultivated. She felt a deep sense of purpose, a desire to continue contributing, learning, and connecting with people in meaningful ways. Through part 3 of her journey, the young woman had transformed. She had moved beyond curiosity into active engagement, embracing the challenges and rewards of collaboration. The father had reinforced her understanding of life's deeper meaning, showing her that true fulfillment came from effort, empathy, and the courage to connect with others. Together, they were not only preparing for a concert, but also nurturing a community, shaping lives, and discovering the profound impact of shared passion and commitment. As the days led up to the concert, the excitement and anticipation grew. The young woman felt a mix of nerves and exhilaration, knowing that the culmination of their efforts would soon be revealed. She reflected on the lessons learned, the bonds formed, and the transformations that had occurred. The journey had been unexpected, challenging, and deeply rewarding, and she understood that the experiences, connections, and growth they had cultivated would leave a lasting impression on everyone involved. Far beyond the notes played on a piano the week before, the concert brought a mixture of excitement and tension. The community center buzzed with activity as the young woman and the father worked tirelessly to ensure everything would be ready. Rehearsals for the children were scheduled in short intervals, each one carefully planned to maximize practice while avoiding fatigue. The young woman coordinated with volunteers, parents, and local supporters, managing details that ranged from seating arrangements to refreshments, while the father focused on refining each performance, guiding the children to play with confidence and emotion. Despite their hard work, challenges arose. Some parents worried their children might be nervous or fail to perform well. A few children expressed doubts about playing in front of a larger audience. The young woman worked closely with them, offering encouragement and reassurance. Drawing on her own experiences of anxiety in unfamiliar situations, the father provided gentle coaching, emphasizing the importance of expressing feelings rather than striving for perfection. Gradually, the children's confidence grew, and their excitement began to outweigh their fear. The young woman also faced resistance from her social circle. Some of her friends questioned why she was spending so much time at the community center, implying that it was beneath her or a waste of her talents. She ignored their comments, choosing instead to focus on the meaningful work she was doing. She found a sense of purpose in helping others that was far more fulfilling than attending parties or following social trends. The father noticed the subtle change in her demeanor, the determination, focus, and humility that had blossomed over the past weeks, and he felt proud of her growth. At the same time, the father had his own challenges. He worried about the logistics of the concert, concerned that last-minute issues might arise. Some local supporters were slow to commit, and he feared that the children's hard work might not be fully appreciated if the event was not organized properly. The young woman's presence provided reassurance. Her ability to manage details and communicate effectively helped alleviate his concerns. Together, they formed a balanced team, complementing each other's strengths and covering weaknesses. One afternoon, as they rehearsed a particularly challenging piece, a young girl struggled with the rhythm, becoming visibly frustrated. The father knelt beside her, speaking softly. "It's okay to make mistakes," he said. "Music is about expressing yourself, not being perfect. Take a deep breath, feel the notes, and let them flow." The young woman added her support, holding the girl's hand gently and smiling. "We're here with you. You can do this. Just enjoy the music." With their encouragement, the girl tried again. This time her fingers moved more confidently, and the father's guidance helped her find the rhythm. By the end of the session, she was smiling and laughing, proud of her progress. Moments like these reminded the young woman why she had committed herself to this work and why the father's dedication mattered so much, beyond rehearsals. The two spent time discussing the meaning behind each piece of music. The father explained how certain melodies reflected specific emotions, experiences, or moments in his life. The young woman listened intently, absorbing not just the technical aspects but the stories and feelings woven into each note. She began to understand that music was a language of its own, capable of conveying depth and complexity that words alone could not capture. The young woman also reflected on her own life. She thought about the contrast between her upbringing in a world of wealth and privilege and the father's life of challenges and resilience. She realized that while money could provide comfort, it could not teach the lessons of perseverance, empathy, or humility. She felt grateful for the opportunity to witness these lessons firsthand and to participate in something that had a tangible impact on the lives of others. As the concert drew nearer, the father and the young woman faced unexpected obstacles. One of the children fell ill and could not attend rehearsals for several days. Another child's family had a sudden emergency, threatening to disrupt the performance schedule. These moments tested their patience and problem-solving skills, but they remained calm and resourceful. The young woman adjusted the schedule, arranged extra practice sessions, and reassured the children and parents. The father modified the music, ensuring that each performance could adapt to changing circumstances. Their teamwork strengthened as they navigated these challenges together. The young woman also encountered moments of self-doubt. She worried that her efforts might not be sufficient or that she was overstepping her role. The father noticed her hesitation and offered quiet encouragement. "You're making a difference," he said. "Your support is helping these children, and your presence is inspiring them. Trust yourself." His words bolstered her confidence. She realized that true impact often came not from grand gestures, but from consistent effort, empathy, and dedication. She embraced the responsibility she had taken on, understanding that her actions could create meaningful change in the lives of the children and the community. Rehearsals continued late into the evenings. The young woman would often stay behind to help tidy the space, organize sheet music, or offer last-minute guidance. The father remained focused on the piano, fine-tuning the children's performances. But he would occasionally glance at her with a quiet smile, acknowledging the vital role she played in their shared mission. One day, as they practiced together, a local reporter visited the community center. Curious about the upcoming concert, she approached the young woman and the father, asking questions about the event and the story behind it. The young woman spoke with authenticity, describing the children's hard work, the importance of music in their lives, and the collaborative effort that had brought the concert together. The father added insights about the power of music to inspire, teach, and connect people across different backgrounds. Their combined presence impressed the reporter, who left with a sense of admiration for the dedication and heart behind the event. The young woman found herself reflecting on the growth she had experienced over the past weeks. She had moved from curiosity to active participation, from observation to meaningful engagement. She had learned patience, empathy, and the value of supporting others. She had witnessed the father's resilience and dedication, absorbing lessons that extended far beyond music. Most importantly, she had begun to see the transformative power of collaboration, where diverse strengths and perspectives could create something greater than the sum of its parts. Meanwhile, the father continued to be inspired by her presence. Her enthusiasm, organizational skills, and willingness to learn brought new energy to the community center. He recognized that her involvement was more than just helpful. It was a reminder that people from different worlds could come together to create meaningful impact. He felt gratitude for her support, admiration for her growth, and a sense of hope for the positive change they could achieve together. As the final rehearsal day approached, the atmosphere was filled with anticipation and a touch of nervousness. The children were excited, but aware of the responsibility of performing in front of an audience. The young woman and the father offered reassurance, emphasizing the joy of sharing music and the importance of enjoying the experience. Their combined support helped ease anxiety and foster a sense of confidence among the performers. In the evening, after a long day of preparation, the young woman and the father sat by the piano, reflecting on the journey. "I never imagined that this experience would change me so much," she said softly. "I feel like I understand life, people, and music in a completely new way." The father nodded, his fingers resting lightly on the keys. "And I never imagined that someone from your world would embrace this work with such sincerity. You've brought so much to the children and to the community. You've reminded me that the smallest efforts, when done with heart, can have a lasting impact." They sat together in quiet contemplation, the piano standing as a symbol of the connection they had formed, the lessons they had learned, and the journey that had brought them to this point. The concert was just around the corner, but the experiences, growth, and bonds they had cultivated over the past weeks were already leaving a lasting mark. As part 4 of her journey came to a close, the young woman felt a mix of excitement, nervousness, and deep satisfaction. She had faced challenges, navigated obstacles, and witnessed the transformative power of dedication, empathy, and collaboration. The father had shared not only his music, but also his wisdom, resilience, and humanity. Together, they had nurtured confidence, inspired creativity, and fostered a sense of community that would endure long after the final notes were played. They were ready for the next chapter of the concert that would showcase not only the children's talent, but also the culmination of effort, heart, and shared purpose. The morning of the concert arrived with a sense of excitement and nervous anticipation. The community center had been transformed into a vibrant space, with rows of chairs set for the audience, decorations reflecting the joy of music, and soft lights creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. The young woman arrived early, ensuring that every detail was in place and ready to welcome guests, volunteers, and performers. She moved with purpose, her nerves mingling with a deep sense of fulfillment. This was the moment they had worked toward for weeks, the culmination of effort, dedication, and heart. The father arrived shortly after, his usual calm demeanor accompanied by a quiet focus. He carried a gentle confidence, knowing that the preparation had been thorough and that the children were ready. As he looked around the hall, he felt a sense of pride not just in the music they would share, but in the growth of the young woman and the children and the impact they had already made in the community.